with Sam Harris, because there's a bit of confusion around this about really what happened with the whole IDW fallout. I mean, there was a point of time where all these great minds were having all these great conversations, everything felt interconnected, and it felt like a really productive space. But then there was a point in time where I think Sam turned in his IDW card, and things just sort of fell apart, and relationships seemed to have collapsed. And Brett was telling me just a month ago that him and Sam, once great friends, they don't talk anymore, and that he would be open to a conversation with Sam, but he doesn't think that Sam is open to one himself. I just wonder what your relationship is like with Sam now, and how you see really what happened with this whole fallout of the IDW.
Right. So Sam and I were always very friendly. We've communicated by email, many times. We've met in person. We've gone to dinner. He invited me to his show many years ago, and so it's not as though we were best friends, but we knew each other. We respected each other. We knew of each other's positions on many things, and so yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, on 95% of things, I would have been his big fan. Then I faced a bit of a conundrum. I'm answering the question of my own relationship with Sam, and it's truly is nothing personal. It's really important for all the folks out there to know. I don't have time to sit and do personal gossip stuff, because there are bigger issues at play. So what are some of those issues? I have a personal code of conduct. Maybe it's just the Gad Saad code of conduct. Maybe it's partly the Middle Eastern code of conduct, where, honor and shame are really important in my calculus, right? So because Sam and I knew each other for many, many years, I bit my tongue as I saw him, taking positions that to me seemed quite insane. Because I was driven by the code of conduct of don't go after your friends. But then the conundrum arose, because then that was pitted against the deontological defense of truth, the pathological need to be authentic. So then I thought, but am I not then being inauthentic if I hold my tongue when someone, yes, whom I know, whom I like, who's a lovely guy, is espousing pure shite? Okay. So then I started coming out of the woodwork, but I did it in a jocular way, right? So I would satirize some of Sam's positions. Now, I thought he might say, haha, Gad, you got me, and we'd go back and forth and rib each other. He went a different route. He first unfollowed me. Now, does it matter to me? Do I stay up at night saying, why, Sam, why did you unfollow me? No, but that's a dishonorable act coming from someone from the Middle East. Then he blocked me, right? Now, he could have easily said that, then eventually he left Twitter, right? Now, he could have easily said, hey, why don't you come on my show and let's hash out our differences? Or, hey, why don't I come on your show and let's hash out our differences? So now let's talk about the issues that, in my case, I know that with Sam and Brett, it was the COVID stuff, but let's talk about a much broader set of issues that really pissed me off. Okay, let me explain now the important distinction between deontological ethics and consequentialist ethics, which I cover in The Parasitic Mind, my previous book. Deontological ethics are absolute truth. So if I say it is never okay to lie, that would be a deontological statement. A consequentialist statement would be, it's okay to lie if there is a greater goal that comes from it, right? I often joke, although it's true, if your spouse says, do I look fat in those jeans, then put on your consequentialist hat really quickly and say, absolutely not. You've never looked more beautiful, and therefore you will have a happy and long marriage, okay? So for many, many things, we are all consequentialists, and it makes perfect sense. But when it comes to inviolable principles that define the West and the greatness of the West, those are deontological by nature. They have to be. So for example, freedom of speech is a deontological principle. The second that you say, I believe in freedom of speech, but ... then you're an asshole, okay? Now, freedom of speech is not absolute in the sense that you can't defame, you can't incite violence, but short of that, it should be an absolute deontological principle, meaning that I am a Jewish person who went through the Lebanese Civil War. I support the right of Holocaust deniers to spew the most offensive and insulting thing possible, which is to deny the mass extermination of an entire people. In a free society, you have to tolerate assholes, okay? So Sam comes along, you know, the guy who wrote a book on morality, you know, the guy who wrote a book about lying and how it's not good to lie. And then he said, oh, I'm all about freedom of speech, but surely not for Orange Himmler. That's my colorful way of saying Donald Trump. So yes, I completely support. Well done, Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, for taking away the sitting president of the United States, because freedom of speech cannot be something that we promote for someone as dangerous as the hurling, to use his words, I'm maybe slightly, he's a asteroid hurling towards Earth. In that case, all bets are off. So that's the ontological violation number one. I believe in freedom of speech, but not for Donald Trump. Story number two. Oh, I'm all about presumption of innocence. Yes, that's all good, but not for Brett Kavanaugh, the guy who's going to become Justice, because we can't, I mean, yes, we don't have any concrete proof that he's a gang rapist that went up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States, raping everybody in sight. We don't have any proof. But in his case, you know, this is a job interview to become justice minister. So we can't afford him the courtesy of presumption of innocence. Okay. Story two. Story three. Oh, I completely believe in journalistic integrity and of telling the truth, but not when it came to Hunter Biden's laptop, because in that case, it made perfect sense for the entire media and all social media platforms and governmental to try to suppress that story, because if they hadn't done that, then Donald Trump would have become president and we couldn't have had that. So in that case, it made perfect sense to suppress the story, which of course we now know was completely true, was not Russian disinformation. Okay. And story four, which relates to Brett Weinstein and his COVID conflict with Sam. Sam went on, as you know, very famously on trigonometry and several times since, where he said, and here I'm going to, even before I say what he said, I'm going to use an Arabic expression translated in English, but it also exists in other cultures. If my grandmother had balls, we would have called her my grandfather. So here's Sam. If I hadn't been wrong about every single thing I said about COVID, and had everything about COVID been the way I had said it should come out, then I would have been right. So you see, I would have been right, right? So I'm being facetious in how I say it, but it's literally that. You just have to go and watch it, right? So that to me is hubris. It's saying the reason why the 7 deadly sins have pride as the number one of the root of all 7 deadly sins, because all the other deadly sins stem from pride, from self-love. I will never admit to being wrong. I'm speaking now as Sam. That pissed me off. And so to me, it has nothing to do with Sam as a person. I'm sure he remains a lovely guy. And tomorrow, if he called me and said, hey, you know what? I actually listened to your points and I think you may be on something. Let's hash it out. I would say, let's do it. Now, all these idiots online speaking about hate, oh, it's a personal thing. Gad is upset because his book didn't sell as much as Sam. Well, first of all, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, do you really think that that's who I am? Or do you think what I just explained to you is what the reason is? So to me, the reason why I went after Sam is because he is a person who has great ideas, who is respected in the intellectual ecosystem, and therefore it would be inauthentic for me to not attack his positions when I think those positions are worthy of attack. And I regret the fact that that may have affected, I don't want to say friendship, because it's not as though, you know, we were hanging out with each other every Tuesday, but I don't like to have bad blood with people. I certainly, in my heart, I hold no ill will towards Sam, but I think he has gone down the abyss of infinite lunacy.